Hey there, thanks for joining me today. I've been really excited to show you all my next project. Unfortunately, it's taken me a little bit to get the title cleaned up, but I finally have the clean title in my name, so I'm ready to get started, and I've been waiting for a good opportunity to film this so I can bring you all along. So this is 1981 Honda Goldwing Interstate. And as you can see, it's been sitting for a while. So we're going to do a little walk around and I'll show you what I've noticed so far, and then I'll tell you what my plans are for it. So going to pick it up, we used a tractor to lift it up and just put it down on the trailer because the front brakes are locked up. That's first thing. I don't know how much that's going to take to get that freed up, but we'll have to dig into that, help move things around the shop. The fairing is missing, which is not a big deal because I don't really want it anyway, but I'm going to have to find the cover that goes over the back of these, as well as a new speedometer, because that's missing. And we also don't know how many miles we're on the bike. The title just says exempt, so I have no record of that. I did stick a jumper pack on it and things came to life. Lights on the gauges included, tail light, so that's a good sign. That all stopped when I took the rear seat off. I found a ground back there that's not really going anywhere, so I'll have to figure that out. But I've got the manual on the way, which has all the wiring diagrams and everything in it, so that'll be coming soon. But while I had the jumper pack on it, I took the blue tape off of the intakes, and inside 3 of the cylinders is a little puddle of rust. So before I go turning this over any farther, because I made maybe one rotation with it, enough to see all 4 of the intake valves move, so none of them are stuck. That's good. And it does turn over, which is also good. I just didn't want to go any farther with it than that, just in case one of the, or more of these cylinders are full of rust. I don't want to go scraping that up and down the cylinder walls. So that's where the engine is going to sit until I have to rotate it to top dead center and I'm ready to take these off. We're missing the battery tray and hold down, so that'll need to be replaced. Obviously all the saddlebags, the trunk and everything's coming off. I'm going to find a new rear grab bar that doesn't have the trunk mount on it. Basically the plan is to turn it into a standard or naked Goldwing, maybe with a few little mods. Nothing major. If you've seen my video about the XL350, my goal there was to go back to stock from, you know, the ratty barn find that it was, and I think that's gone pretty well. It's not perfect, but it's usable one step at a time, you know. So I did put it up on the center stand, which was very difficult without the front wheel being able to move, and pumped some air into the front and rear air suspension systems, and they seem to hold air. So I will see how they act when I put it back down on the ground. Hopefully it doesn't sag quite as much as it did before. The seat obviously is going to need redone. The carbs here in the trunk, and unfortunately taken apart and admittedly from the sellers, taken apart by somebody who didn't know quite what they were doing, and clearly they got lost. So my gut feeling says that these would be a nightmare to sort out what all's been done to them before I got there and then get them into running condition again. So I think they are going to sit as they are, and after we get a look inside the cylinders, make sure there's nothing wrong there, we'll do head gaskets, timing belts, valve stem seals, and lap the valves, because I have all the stuff for that from the XL350 rebuild project. So assuming there's nothing wrong in there, after the head gaskets and timing belts and all that is put back together, I'm going to order a single carb conversion for it, and this just incredibly simplifies the maintenance on this bike, taking it down from 4 carbs to 1 using a Volkswagen carburetor, and I'm kind of excited about that. There is oil in it. I cleaned off the sight glass, and on the center stand it's sitting above center, so that's a good sign also that there was oil in it. Hopefully most of the valves were closed. They seem to be, because of the level of the rust puddles that was inside them, leads me to believe that that water didn't have anywhere to go, except for the one that had the tape was actually broken on. The rest of them were sealed, which is kind of strikes me as odd. Is I think it had to have been condensation just from temperature changes gathering up in there and dripping down into where the valve rests. So that one that doesn't have a rust puddle has me concerned, because the tape was broken. Even though the valve inside looks clean, all that rust might be inside the cylinder. So we'll just have to wait and see how all that goes. I don't want to start tearing into that until I have the service manual, because I don't want to mess it up. I want to make sure that I'm at all the right marks when I go to take the timing belts off, pull the cams out and all that. So I like doing things by the book, especially on things that I'm not super familiar with, so that's why I ordered the book. Unfortunately, it didn't arrive here in time for this video. But we might be going considerably farther today. So this weight on front, if you can read that, basically it says you only need that weight if you're riding with the fairing on, which we're not going to be, and that's where the headlight mounts, so a lot of this stuff is going to come off. I think there's a harness for the fairing that goes up in there as well that can come out. Lots of grass still on it. I'll have to vacuum out around the spark plug ports. I'm really wishing I had a scope camera, because that would be a much easier way of determining what the inside of the cylinders look like without taking everything apart. But I still think it's probably better for peace of mind to know that the timing belts are in good condition and brand new, and valve stem seals and head gaskets. Lap the valves, we know we'll have great compression. I'd just rather see everything with my own eyes, for sure. So let me get you set up on the GoPro, and we will do a little montage, I think, taking this thing down. really starting to like this. I think she probably just lost 100 pounds or so. This is that ground I was telling you about. A lot of that hardware was already missing to begin with. Makes my life easier, I suppose. I think this needs that rear grab bar in order to I don't see where else it would attach. Yeah. So it needs that rear grab bar and all of this to stay sturdy. And without those bars on here, those might need to be shorter bolts. I haven't figured that out yet. But we'll get there slowly but surely. Somebody's had a tool on that because that's already loose. Small dent there. Alright, well, clean some of this up and move on to the front. I'm a big fan of putting the bolts back in the holes they came out of, if I can. Makes things a lot easier when you're trying to put things back together later on. The foot pegs I'm putting back on. 3 pounds it says. Or number 3. Feels like more than 3 pounds. And I spotted this thing the other day. I have not figured out what that's for. Not yet anyway. So I suppose I'll leave that attached. I'm guessing it has something to do with the fairing that I am not going to care about. All that's going to wait until I get the book. Let's get it. The fairing bracket and the crash bars off. Blessed is he who knows where his 10mm socket is. And the horns are also attached to that, but somebody must have already because you're not even connected to anything. Turn the wheel. It's really close. I think with the crash bars out of the way, we can probably get that the rest of the way. No worries. Fender and everything's gonna get painted anyway, so. Okay, let's do another little walk around now that I've got everything that I wanted to take off of it. It's slimmed down a lot easier to move around it here in the garage. But next, I need to get it rolling. That front wheel is locked up. So I went ahead and took the rest of the screws out of this reservoir. A little bit in there, not much really. And taking the screws out of that reservoir cap, I needed the trusty handheld impact driver. If you don't have one of these working on these old Japanese bikes, you're gonna have a bad time. Trust me, you're just gonna strip out pretty much every Phillips that you come across. So get yourself a hand-driven impact and use it. It's a lifesaver, and this one only cost me about 10 bucks. Comes with like 4 different bits, so a solid investment. So they seem pretty stuck. Don't know how much this is gonna take, but let's see what we can do. I've laid out a paper tarp here. The likelihood of things dripping and getting messy, I think, is pretty high. Yeah, that don't look right at all. Well, let's keep going. Let's just take the caliper bolts out and see if we can get that to slide out of the way. Well, the caliper came off, looking pretty rusty. There's one brake pad. A little bit further. I bet once the other side's off, this thing will spin freely. At least I hope it does. If it's a wheel bearing issue, it's gonna be something else. But Let me move you over to the other side and we'll take that one off too. And for the brake lines, after the rebuild, I'm going to be using some nice stainless steel braided brake lines. Pretty excited about those. I don't know if you can see that on camera there, but this stuff does not look right. It looks like rust and water, maybe a little bit of oil, but it does not look real great at all. Let's see if it moves. Ooh. Ooh, dice. Something's still up with it. Let's take the caliper brackets off. Looks like they might be dragging on the back side, which is a bit concerning, to say the least. Now looking a little closer from the front here, things don't seem perfectly straight. I don't see anything else holding those on. I think that's what's actually rubbing on the rotor. See if I can give it maybe a little bit of a prying action from somewhere, or maybe a little smack. Let me reposition you here, I think. I'm going to try prying right here. Oh. Well, I can't quite tell you what's going on here yet. That does not fit right. Does not fit how it should. It is marked right side, so at least that's correct, but space between is just not enough to allow the bracket without it rubbing on the rotor. So that came right off. Nice. See how far through we are. Alright. Well, there's one thing sorted. This front fender needs to come off anyway, so I think that's the next step, and that'll give me a better line of sight when it comes to line things up here. So we're spinning now, which is good, but if you look from the front, the wheel spacing is off from left to right. I don't know how this could happen, but somebody had to have had this off before messing with stuff. So I think I need to take that front wheel off and see if something maybe flips around or some spacers are out of order, but something's not quite right. Got to figure out what. So looking around online, it seems as though this nut should be on the other side. So we're going to pull these caps. I think I have to undo that nut and see if we can get this front wheel to come off. I feel like everything here so far is much looser than it should have been, which is not a good sign for me. Let's see if this arrangement can be flipped around. Because on this side, there's a spacer. Which side does that spacer go on? I'm thinking because we were too far to the left, that spacer needs to go on the left. So that's where I'll put it, and we'll see what happens. Sorry, let me reposition it here. Yep, that was the issue. So somebody had this front wheel off before, and in putting it back together, had the axle backwards, and as a result, that spacer was on this side, making the whole front wheel half an inch or more too far to the left. Now with things flipped around, to resemble the pictures that I saw online, everything lines up. So it might not have been a front brake problem at all. In fact, I don't think it was, because nothing there looks really rusty. I don't know if the pistons are stuck yet or not, but it was just rubbing the... Oh man. Alright, so I think I'll take this back apart later at some point in time and make sure everything's clean and properly lubricated. But for now, I just really wanted to figure out why everything was so far off. And I'm glad that it's nothing major. The forks in the front wheel seemed to line up well. It was just too far to the right side of the motorcycle. The speedometer drive gear wasn't up against its stop either. So I'm going to put the caps back on and probably tighten that up just a little for now. And we'll decide what else we want to do with it today. Alright, so went ahead and got the front wheel button back up, set it back on the ground on the side stand, and put the shroud and the seat back on just so I can sit on it when I'm out here in the garage and daydream. But we've got some positive signs here. The air pressure that I put in the suspension is holding. It only sags a little bit with me sitting on it, so I think the suspension is going to be usable, and that's great, because if I can put off rebuilding that stuff for a while, at least get it back on the road, see how it feels, I'll be pretty happy. So obviously I've got a lot of parts I need to find for it, but we still have to figure out if the engine internals are in good condition before we move on to any of the cosmetic stuff besides all the stripping down that I just did. I wish I had a scale that could tell me just how much weight this thing just lost with all the stuff I took off of it. I already like the look of it a lot better. So getting all the parts I took off of it organized while we're waiting for parts for other things we can rebuild, the brake system and all that. At least get them cleaned up and ready for the new parts to go on them. So still, that'll be after we do the heads. And it's gonna need tires as well. This front one, somebody decided to put a cigarette butt out on, looks like. Not real cool, but I suppose it needed replaced anyway. Not a whole lot of life left to it, really. But yeah, finally getting to work on it makes me a lot more excited about this project, and learning that I'm gonna have to go over everything with a fine-tooth comb, because clearly it's been a little bit misrepresented to me just how much has been fiddled with on this bike. I mean, one of the seat bolts is missing. There's no hardware for holding the shroud down. That's the gas tank looking thing. The actual gas tank is underneath the seat on these, so that'll need figured out. So yeah, lots to do, and this is one of those long haul projects, so I hope you all are ready to be along for the ride, and catch you next time. Thanks for watching.